Okay, folks, here we are. Sorry I'm a little bit late. I apologize for that. We're going to talk about what's happening in the sky right now, and also talk about the forecast for all 12 signs for this full moon in Taurus. One second. So the full moon is happening in the next it's happening in the next few hours. Let me see. Calculate. Or did it already happen? No, it's like happening like right now. The moon is at its fullest. The sun is at 28. And the way to figure this out, if you have astrology software, is when the moon is exactly opposite the sun. So right now it's like exactly opposite, but the sun right now is at 28:13 of sidereal Scorpio, and the moon is at 26:45 of sidereal Taurus. So that's like exact opposite, right? And it's also opposite Saturn. Saturn is also there. And so that's when we have the full moon, when the sun is opposite the moon. Moon opposite the sun. And so as soon as it's exact, that's when the first lunar day starts. So actually, the full moon day is the last day. When the moon goes that last 12 degrees, that's the full moon day. So the full moon day is that last day when the sun and moon go gunk, and then as soon as it goes like that, the first lunar day starts. Like that. So it's kind of like a watch. So right now this moon is like right there. It's like that last degree. And then a couple hours from now it'll be like right there, and then we start the first lunar day, or what's called the first Tithi. So by the time of sunset tonight on the West Coast and East Coast, the moon will be like exactly full and starting the first lunar day of the waning moon. So in the sky right now we have I'm sorry, I'm doing something here. I'll try to post it. In the sky we have several aspects on the full moon as well, which are making it quite hopeful and also quite intense. Both Saturn and Jupiter are aspecting this full moon, and Saturn's aspect opposition on the full moon, it brings like focus and determination and will and a sort of somewhat of a stress, but it's like the stress of time, like the pressure of time, and it's kind of making us want to get real about what's happening. And of course Saturn has also joined the Sun. So the Sun-Saturn conjunction is sort of slowing down our physical body. It can lead to some, like I say, some like physical pain and sleeping more and feeling kind of low energy. That's been going on for the last week or two. And now aspecting the moon can kind of bring that stress in the mind as well. But Jupiter is also aspecting the moon, and Jupiter brings inspiration and hope and relationship to like guru and teachers. So those things can be bringing a lot of benefit right now as well. And the full moon is in Taurus, which is the sign of being grounded and being connected and being simple and just enjoying like the simple pleasures and the simple moments in life, the simple beauty of people, of relationships, of the opposite of Scorpio. So you want to understand this opposition. So the new moon was a couple weeks ago in Scorpio, and it was a very stressful new moon because the sun and moon were both in Scorpio. The moon is debilitated in Scorpio, where the emotions are very restless and stressful. You remember the forecast. It's also joined Saturn, which also brings a lot of pressure, and the moon is very dark. So there's a lot of things about the moon part of us that was very difficult on the new moon. Scorpio, the moon is dark, it's joined Saturn. Didn't feel very good. I'm glad that at the time I was with my guru Amachi in San Jose, but I got really sick. I was quite sick right after the new moon. Because for me, as Gemini, it actually happened in the 6th house. I don't usually get sick, but for some reason I got pretty sick for a couple days and wound up missing a lot of the program. But for me, as Gemini, Scorpio is the 6th house. That's how this works. So it wound up being a time of physical stress for me. That's how these things can work. So for each of the 12 signs, if you go back and listen to the new moon forecast that I did a couple weeks ago, you'll see how this cycle is for you. So for Gemini, it was 6th house, which is physical stress, which could be illness. That's the 30-day cycle of the sun in Scorpio. Halfway in that cycle, which is where we are now, the halfway point, because the moon starts new, and then 2 weeks later, it's where we are now, which is the full moon. It's opposite. So opposite Scorpio is Taurus. This is where the moon is in its exalted sign. And the moon is very bright, which is one of the best conditions of the moon. So whereas 2 weeks ago, it was two of the more difficult conditions of the moon, now 2 weeks later, it's one of the more positive parts of the moon, where the moon is both bright and in its sign of exaltation. So good. I just posted the chart. Yes. So if you want to look in the group, if you refresh the group page, Vedic Astrology Training Lab, the chart is now posted there. So you can see that chart. You have Sun, Saturn at the bottom, middle. That's the box of Scorpio. And then directly opposite is the moon up there in Taurus, in its exalted sign, and its opposite Scorpio. So all of that restless and intensity and drama and stress and pressure and imagined fear and worry of the new moon in Scorpio a couple weeks ago is now a lot more stable. This is why 2 weeks later we have the harmonizing point, the point of contrast. So the point of contrast and harmony with Scorpio is Taurus. What it means is that the real power of Scorpio isn't to be all stressed out. That's not the power of it. That's the detriment of it. But the power of Scorpio is to be able to sit with emotional intensity and drama and insecurity and pain and fear and go deeper into that so we can transform it and heal it. That's what the that's the highest quality. Sorry, that's the highest quality of Scorpio. So you want to understand with astrology, everything has a virtuous and divine purpose. So it's not like Scorpio is one of the bad ones and Taurus is one of the good ones. Scorpio feels hard because we have to face difficult things with Scorpio. But facing them makes us stronger, right? And the way we're able to face them is to integrate those qualities of Taurus that I just mentioned, which is solid, stable, enjoying the beauty, connecting with the beauty of life, remembering those things that are solid and unchanging and beautiful, rather than just fixating on the drama, which is what we tend to do in this day and age, in this world. No matter what side of any issue you come down on, you're not happy. We could just, even if we talk about politics, you either, especially a lot of people these days in the U.S. with our presidential nominee, you're stressed and worried about that. I mean, even if people like him, they're stressed and worried. People who don't like him are stressed, and we're all stressed and worried about something, but there's certainly a lot of that. But underneath it all, a lot of that is in our mind. It doesn't mean it might not happen or that we shouldn't be vigilant, but day to day, moment to moment, we still have the present moment. And no matter what's going to happen in the future, it's going to arrive as a present moment that we're going to have to live and experience. And if we live and experience it all triggered and worried, and all those negative qualities of Scorpio, all that paranoia, then we're not going to meet that moment very well. So this is what Taurus is. This is what this full moon is about. And in context, it's that solid, stable point of harmony, and in contrast to the drama. So it's not just, this is a great time of being calm and peaceful. That's not right. These are a couple days where we get to really feel that, where we get to connect with that. It's easier because the moon is bright. The moon is in its solid, stable Taurus, ruled by Venus, fixed Earth. It's the most solid, stable sign of the zodiac, so we get to feel that. And what it means is also that in order to keep up with all of the drama, we need to really generate it ourselves, because the last couple of days with that moon in Taurus, even in fact a couple days before, like the end of last week when the moon was in Pisces, aspected by Jupiter, now the moon is in Taurus, exalted and full, also aspected by Jupiter. It's been a good week as far as potential for feeling more relaxed and peaceful. We've had to generate a lot of the drama ourselves, because the astrological weather, which is what I'm talking about day to day in the daily forecast and whatnot, has been pretty calm and peaceful. Moon in Pisces aspected by Jupiter a couple days ago, right, for a couple days. End of last week. Over the weekend, we had the moon in Aries. So there's some intensity over the weekend for sure, because we had the moon in Aries, as you saw on the forecast. But then yesterday and today, moon in Taurus. Sure, it's aspected by Saturn, but it's also aspected by Jupiter. It's in that sign of being solid and stable. So in the midst of all the crazy stuff that's going on, the feeling was really supporting, going, whew, well, you know what? I am still grateful that I have this and this beautiful world, and just settling into the moment. All right? So that's what Taurus is really about. And that's the energy that's necessary to complete the circle that Scorpio opens up. So every sign has an entire evolutionary process to it. And the halfway point in the Scorpio process, which is where we are, is Taurus. And that exalted moon, that exalted full moon. So you can know this about the Scorpio cycle. The Scorpio cycle, in keeping with its intense ways, it is very intense. It starts with the moon at its worst, so to speak, really dark, and in its sign of debilitation, where we're really emotionally frazzled and triggered easily. Then the halfway point, the moon is at its height. It's as bright as it can be. And it's in the most stable sign that it can be in, which is Taurus. And so, a few other things about this full moon. And as you see that Jupiter is aspecting the moon, you can see the degrees. The moon is 26:45 when I posted this chart. It's actually going to be full at 28. But you can see that Jupiter is 24. So the aspect is it's exact. It's just what's called a trinal aspect. The trine, it means a triangle. So it's a triangle, and Jupiter's point in the triangle is like right here. And just today, the moon went like this, just a little bit past the exact aspect. But it's a very exact aspect. And so is Saturn. You see Saturn is 25, Jupiter is 24:45, and the moon in that chart that I posted is 26. So the aspects are really right on by exact degree. So those degrees are really important when you start doing precise astrology. So we can really feel that inspiration and purpose settling our restless mind on this full moon. And so Venus, the ruler of Taurus, is also very settled and stable in Capricorn, which is ruled by Saturn. And it's also receiving an aspect from Jupiter. You can see, if you're not sure how to look at it, look at that chart. You can see how Jupiter, Moon, and Venus are all evenly spaced in a triangular form with each other. That's why the aspect is called a trine. And Jupiter aspects those trines. He puts the aspect there. We also have what's called an exchange. When two planets are in each other's signs, they exchange. And we have an exchange between Mercury and Jupiter. Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, I'll do that in the future. And there's an aspect, mutual aspect between Jupiter and Mercury. So they're in each other's signs. It means Mercury's in Jupiter's sign, Jupiter's in Mercury's signs. That's called an exchange. It's very important for holding things together, making things precise, whereas they can easily not be. So in this case, it's bringing together our beliefs, which is Jupiter, with our comprehension of how things work, which is Mercury. So Jupiter is the bigger picture, and Mercury are all the details of the bigger picture. And so those things are coming together. We see a lot of that in the news right now. We're certainly noticing it with the political news here in the U.S., with a lot of this scrutiny that's happening with President-elect Trump and all of the things he's saying, and how we're seeing the impact. We're having to really look at this and see, right? How he's going to separate his businesses and all this other stuff, not to get into all the politics and stuff, but Mercury and Jupiter, like Jupiter is saying, Jupiter is a tendency to want to go, oh, it'll be okay, give it a chance, we have hope. Mercury is all the details, saying, well, but wait a minute, how's this going to work? Of course, Mr. Trump is very Jupiterian. He's got Jupiter in Virgo, and he's very much like, oh, just don't pay attention to the specifics of my words. I just have this big vision. And Mercury is saying, wait a minute, we need to know the words. We need to know how you're going to separate your business from the presidency. We need to pay attention to why you're using Twitter, or why you're insulting people from these other governments, or whatever it is. So we can see these two things working out. So in us, in our life, we also can see it with getting really clear about the things that we believe, getting much more rational and practical, and making sure that the things we believe make sense. And a lot of the ways we tell they make sense or not is we try to explain it to other people. We start saying it, and then people start saying something back to us using the current president-elect as an example, like I just said. We scrutinize words a lot more. Well, wait a second, you're saying this, but now you're saying that, so what you're saying isn't jiving with what you're trying to make us believe. Same is true with our beliefs, the things we believe. There's been a lot of really great breakthroughs with my astrology students last few weeks since Mercury went into Sagittarius and started the exchange with Jupiter. If people are willing to work through it, again, you have to do the work. And Mercury and Jupiter in Virgo is about that work, that detailed work. So, especially in my level 2 course, there's a lot of advanced students, and we're at an advanced part where they need to, if they're going to progress and advance and become more advanced, they need to actually do the work. So instead of just asking me to explain general things, my response to them is, you need to do the work and let me check your work. Rather than just say, I'm confused, say more about this thing. My response is, I've said plenty. You need to do the work now. You need to do what I'm telling you to do on a chart so I can see what you're doing. And those who have been willing to do that, who are actually getting in there and doing the work, and putting those things into practice that they think they already know, because that's the big problem of Jupiter, is we think we already know something because we believe it, because we believe in it. And again, I'm saying this to everybody about what you believe, about your beliefs. Yes, yours. You believe you already know it, but you don't really know it until you can practice it, till you can explain it, till you know how it works. That's how you know something, and that's how you know something. Because you can sit here and have people ask you a bunch of questions about how it works, and you can answer them. If you can't, and you're like, well, I know how it works, I just can't explain it, then you don't really know how it works. Trust me, I know this one. Think about it. Think about something that you really know, that you really have comprehended, that you've learned down to the level of detail. That's something that you really know, not just something that you believe in. And usually the belief is something very big, like, let's like say in astrology or something, we believe that it works. But you don't really know how it works, and the belief is very shaky until you know it on the functional level. So these things are very important right now. Jupiter and Mercury exchanging. They've been exchanging for a couple weeks. So again, those who are willing to get down there and do the detailed work, which is Mercury, are getting a lot of grace and willingness of the teacher to come in there and help them, which is Jupiter and Virgo. So they're exchanging. And again, the way we can see this is through our words. Because like in the example of my class, the students will ask me a question. They'll communicate something thinking, oh, okay, just tell me this, and I'll say no. Let me see your words. Let me see you explain it. And then I come in and then I explain in more detail. And that leads them to more questions and more explanation. So it really builds. And this is why Jupiter and Mercury together are very good for astrology, by the way, because of this mixing between what we believe in and what we know in our rational mind because of our experience. So these are all good indicators now, and Mercury will be in Sagittarius for another couple weeks or so. Jupiter will be in Virgo until next summer. So we also just had Mars go into Aquarius, which is also exchanging with Saturn. They're also in an exchange, just like Mercury and Jupiter were in an exchange. Saturn and Mars are in an exchange. So that brings together the power and the capacity to destroy our weaknesses, because both Mars and Saturn are aligned to destroy our weaknesses and our fears. That's what they both do. That's why they're the tamasic planets. Mars actually does it by destroying something. With Mars, we're courageous to fight and destroy something, like in an argument or in a fight or in a battle. Saturn, we actually avoid. We want to avoid problems. So Saturn is more, you might say, sort of cowardly, but that's more of a judgment. Cowardly in a good way, or where we're wise to avoid things because they're going to waste our time. Right? Saturn is aware of time. You know, where it's just not worth it. Where you avoid situations. When you were younger, you would get in there and fight and argue. Now that you're older, you just avoid it. I've had to learn this one. I'm definitely a fighter. So I've had to learn to choose my battles wisely, especially as I got older and had less energy. You know, if it were up to, we'll just say, if it were up to the internet, I'd do nothing but spend my time arguing with people that think I'm horrible. Now, of course, you're probably not one of them because you're here, but there are plenty of people who want to just send me hate messages. As an example, I could fight all these people and I'd spend all day just arguing with people who don't agree with me about certain things. That's a misuse of Mars, Saturn energy. At best, what happens is these things come together. We choose our battles wisely, which is Mars, and we stop wasting our time on things that are just pointless, which is Saturn. You see? And you can see both of them in detriment shows where we waste our time, and then rather than building a structure, a supportive structure that leads to greatness and success and accomplishment, which is Saturn, rather than making a commitment to those things that really, you know, build our life and our world on humility and whatnot. Again, all of these are the great attributes of Saturn, the greatness of Saturn. We keep destroying our peace of mind. We get into battles. We waste our time. And it just, both of them really deteriorate. So Mars and Saturn really work together to allow us to, as I said, destroy our weaknesses. That's why I said it. That simple statement is actually very loaded. The reason it's there's a lot of advantage and, you know, benefit to that now is because of the exchange, the same exchange that I just talked about with Jupiter and Mercury. We have with Saturn and Mars. But then we have to look at the signs. Saturn is in Scorpio, which is those emotional fears, and Mars is in Aquarius, which is social advantages, social connections. And so this is where we're seeing a lot of that play out. This is why there's so much political restlessness and paranoia. Can really see these things come together. Political is Aquarius, paranoia is Scorpio, and really afraid and worried about the world, not just in your country, but in all the countries in the world, the paranoia in the world, even just about how we're going to work through stuff. And so, again, a great time for us to choose our battles wisely and not give into false hope or fighting the wrong battles and stuff like that.